In today's video, we are here to talk about Silent Hill 2 Remake. I want to start this off by sharing my Silent Hill experience. I have played 2, 4, Homecoming, and Downpour. So altogether that's 4 games. I haven't followed Silent Hill as aggressively as I have like Resident Evil and Fatal Frame, but I have played through those 4 games. So I came into this thinking a remake sounds like a good idea, but I was unsure how it would turn out with Bloober Team at the helm. I enjoyed 70% of the medium. I lost interest when the story became heavy-handed and predictable. But the medium had atmosphere, decent graphics, a unique concept, and interesting characters. So it is very possible that this will be good. If you are new to the channel, we talk about anime and video games here. We also discuss anime conventions. If that sounds remotely intriguing to you, please consider subscribing. By the way, this review will contain no spoilers. We have a lot to go through, so let's just jump right in. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I am Ryofu and you are watching The Gaming Harbinger. If you are unfamiliar with the Silent Hill games, you can rest assured that you don't need to play the first game in order to understand the second. But I will say that the story for Silent Hill 1 and Silent Hill 3 connect, so keep that in mind if you ever want to play either of those games. In this game, you are the protagonist James Sunderland, who receives a letter from his deceased wife. The letter states that she is waiting at their special place. That place is Silent Hill. James is obviously bewildered by this due to his wife passing 3 years ago. But there is some part of him that has to find out. He knows it doesn't make sense, but he has to find out why. Silent Hill is calling him. I have played this on the PlayStation 5, but it is also available on PC. This is a 1-year timed exclusive, so it'll eventually make its way to the Xbox. The first thing you'll notice about the release is that you have a performance and fidelity option. I know some people just want to play 60 frames per second regardless, but I think it's fair to say that this game is slower than the average game. Fidelity is somewhere around 1500p at 30 frames per second, and performance mode is at 1150p, jumping between 40 to 60 frames per second. I think it has to be said though that those dips in the 40s, that doesn't happen as much, and that's like the lowest we're talking. So for the most part, it's going to be more common to see it between 50 and 60 frames per second. One interesting tidbit is that you can control the difficulty of the puzzles. Playing through standard felt like perfection. I wouldn't want harder or easier puzzles, but I am curious what changes are made to make them harder. You can also toggle the difficulty of the enemies. I had to toggle off the screen health indicator. That was just too much for me. If you were to get hit twice, you could be in the cautionary levels and you would have a slight blotch of redness across the entire screen. I just really did not like this. I turned this off because it was just obscuring things on screen for me. But I will say the health being displayed on the controller lights is pure genius. I love it, love it, love it. Speaking of which, gameplay mainly consists of puzzles, meleeing enemies, and occasional third-person shooting. We will come back to the puzzles in a moment. You can actually aim in this game, but aside from that, the gameplay only slightly feels smoother. There is a dodge button that you will need to master, and spamming the button is not mastering it. So it'll be essential for you to incorporate dodging and meleeing attacks the further you get into the game. You cannot just purely rely on just shooting everything. Sound design is something that comes off as minor, but is something that amplifies the gaming experience. I am not a headphone gamer, but I do love my surround sound. This game delivers on that front. This isn't a game with constant music and lots of sound effects, but it is a game that does what it's supposed to do. Okay, so let's talk about some standout moments. I really think the puzzles have really impressed me. They've really like got my attention. I know I could have made them harder than standard, but then also I could have made them easier. But it really felt like standard was just really entertaining to me. And let's go back to the beginning where I said you can toggle the difficulty. Pure genius. If you hate puzzles, but are okay with the rest of the game being harder, you can do that. If you want hard puzzles, but you want the enemies to be easier, you can do that as well. But again, I feel the puzzles in general are crafted in a way where if you are missing an item, you will know. If you only have part of a combination, you will know. The game is not trying to stump you for hours on end. It's designed in a way where if you are paying attention to notes and items you find, you should be able to figure things out. I think Bloober Team really succeeded in bringing these characters to life. All the characters that James interacts with are abnormal, but all of them play their role in James's journey. And Bloober Team really took some time to flesh out their personalities and their next-gen look. Even though I have acknowledged the changes, the one thing that hasn't changed much is the combat. This is going to sound weird. I'm a little surprised that little has changed gameplay-wise and everyone is okay with this. We are in this time where everything has to be fast-paced and flashy. So I'm actually quite relieved that very little was altered with the combat. This was a smart move on their part, because keeping the combat simple works great for horror games. The last standout is that there are sections in the game that Bloober Team knew how to magnify and amplify the atmosphere. I'm just going to say the prison section and everything after that is genius. We're talking like 10 out of 10 areas. Seriously. And I hate using the number system, but that kind of facilitates my point. They added a layer of challenge without making it impossible. And I'm trying to avoid spoiling anything. And my God, the yard in the prison, man, so many little subtleties and nuances there. And it's a really cool thing. I so badly want Koei Tecmo to create a Fatal Frame remake or reboot or whatever. And it has to at least be this good. This is the standard. It's just not fair. When I got to the prison section, guys, I immediately became enraged. Why is this so good? Damn! I'm a Fatal Frame fan, and I'm jealous. I'm jealous that this game received such a proper treatment. The concept in the yard, like I said, it has its subtleties, and it reminds me of things that I saw in Fatal Frame. Things that are put into the game that in some ways you could argue they are meaningless, like nothing's gonna happen, but it's there to mess with your head. Bravo, job well done. Now there isn't much, but I do have some baby complaints. Let's start off with the most reasonable one, but I'm sure some of you will still think I'm being ridiculous. This game runs a tad too long. Yes, you did hear me say that correctly. I wouldn't change a damn thing on the last 4 areas, so maybe there were sections in the earlier areas that could have been shorter. Now I will present a game that I feel is slightly shorter, but it could have been as long as this game. You know what I'm going to say, Evil Within 2. Hold on, let me explain. This isn't just another moment for me to just ramble on about Evil Within 2, maybe just a little bit, but in Silent Hill 2, you have a few firearms and a melee attack. But excluding boss fights, you are fighting the enemies essentially the same way every time. The only time it's different is if an enemy is being introduced or there are multiples of the same type of enemy on screen. Anyways, the point is that you are doing the same combat over and over. However, in Evil Within 2, you have more weapons, a stealth attack, you can sneak, you can use the environment, and sometimes you can just run. So it's more of a mixture of action, horror, running away, and baby stealth mechanics. Combat is just constantly being shaken up in Evil Within 2. In this game, in the Silent Hill 2 remake, it's going to feel repetitive at times, but I mean that's also because it is a slower game by nature. And by the way, I do want to emphasize the part that this is a baby complaint. The game is damn near perfect, okay? That's right, I said it. So this isn't me just praising Evil Within 2 for no damn reason. So any gamer friends that I have know one thing about me, and that is I am a sucker for bugs. I actually find most of them absolutely hilarious. I know there's times when bugs can be game breaking. That's not cool. I will acknowledge that. But this game does have its share of bugs at the time that I played it. They didn't ruin the experience. They definitely caught me off guard when they happened. And this is the one I came across the most. Now, the last baby criticism, this is more me trying to be objective, and this is less like how I personally feel, but this is me just pointing this out. So if you detest backtracking in games, you may not make it through this game. I personally think if you don't like backtracking, you shouldn't play horror games, like for real. You probably won't like Fatal Frame either, let's keep it a buck. Maybe it's because I have been gaming since the 80s, but I personally don't see backtracking as a bad thing. But in modern times, I have seen many people just absolutely label backtracking as a negative. So if you detest this in your games, do not play this. You have been warned. The last 4 sections of the game are amazing. I really think that Bloober Team outdid themselves on this game, but I would also add, I think Bloober Team agreed to developing this game knowing it's in their wheelhouse. They didn't agree to a Resident Evil game or some action-y game. They agreed to the type of horror game that is in their comfort zone. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Did this game surprise you? Maybe you've already beaten it. What did you think? Or do you think it's a respectable remake? I absolutely think it is. But anyways, I appreciate you watching the video to the very end, and I'll see you next time.